You weren't meant to be swiped, not like an option, not like a product in a catalog of better products. But that's what it feels like, doesn't it? You didn't notice it at first. How slowly you became a brand, an identity optimized for approval, a set of photos that make you look fun, but not too eager, a profile that sounds deep, but not intense. You learned the unspoken rules of low-effort texting and not catching feelings too soon. You became fluent in irony, allergic to sincerity, because sincerity makes you vulnerable, and in the dating world, vulnerability is poor marketing. You didn't start here. You started with a desire to connect, to be seen, to be chosen for who you are, not for the image you crafted, but the rules of the game changed. Dating stopped being about emotional intimacy. It became about strategy, curation, presentation. You became a performance of yourself, and now you wonder why it all feels so empty. Because in this new world of algorithmic attraction, realness is a liability. You're not encouraged to share your grief, your loneliness, your fears, or your needs. You're encouraged to share your highlight reel. Smile wide, sound witty, look hot, be chill, but don't feel too much. Don't want too much. Don't be too much. Because if you are, someone else will be less, and they'll get chosen. That's how the market works. You're not on a date, you're on a platform. And platforms don't reward authenticity, they reward engagement. So you learn to sell yourself. You learn how to write bios that hit just the right tone. You pick pictures that make your life look spontaneous and sexy. You internalize feedback. When you match more with one version of yourself than another, you adjust, tweak, rebrand, until your actual self begins to feel irrelevant, even to you. And it's not just dating apps doing this, it's the whole culture. Be the best version of yourself has turned into be the most desirable version of yourself. Desire has become data-driven. Love has become a numbers game. Even the language we use reflects this shift. I got no matches today. Maybe I need to change my first pick. Maybe I need to be more flirty, more clever, more something. The tragedy isn't that dating apps exist. It's that they rewired the way you see yourself, even offline. You walk into a room and scan for who might like you, not for who you might like. You calculate your value, not your connection. You don't show up as yourself. You show up as a pitch. And over time, that does something brutal to your soul. You start to feel disposable, replaceable, like you're only as good as your last text, your last outfit, your last impression. You start to distrust your own needs. You minimize your desire for commitment because it might scare someone off. You pretend casual works for you. You play the game even when it's killing you. But deep down, something in you knows this isn't love, this is performance, this is survival. And the loneliest part of all, you're not even sure anyone knows the real you anymore because you've gotten so good at hiding it. You wonder if anyone would choose you without the filters, without the pose, without the charm you wear like armor. You wonder what it would feel like to stop marketing yourself and just be, to risk being awkward, vulnerable, uncertain, to say, here I am, not perfect, not polished, but real. But that kind of connection is rare now, not because people don't want it, but because they've been trained to fear it. In a world that commodifies attention, depth is a risk. Needing someone, really needing them, is seen as weakness. And so we drift, surrounded by options but starving for intimacy. The dating world turned you into a product, but that isn't what you are. You're a person, flawed, complex, messy, alive, and you are worthy of being seen as such, even if the world forgot. You don't have to. You didn't set out to play a role. You set out to be loved. But somewhere along the way, you learned that being lovable wasn't the same as being loved. You realized that connection wasn't guaranteed. It was something you had to earn, and not through honesty, but through performance. You started curating yourself in ways that weren't entirely false, just incomplete. And the problem with being seen through a filter is that, after a while, you start to believe it's all anyone could want. That's the paradox. The more effort you put into being desirable, the less you trust the desire that comes your way. Because when someone likes the version of you you've constructed, the polished, witty, effortless one, there's a part of you that wonders, would they still want me if I dropped the act? If I admitted I get lonely sometimes? That I crave connection more than I care to admit? That I'm not always chill or self-assured or fun? There's a strange grief in realizing you're attracting attention, but not connection. Matches, but not meaning. Conversations, but not intimacy. The kind of grief that creeps in when you're surrounded by options, but none of them feel real. When everyone's available, but no one's present. when you're constantly seen, but rarely known. And yet, it feels like you have no choice but to keep going, because stepping away from the game means risking invisibility. It means confronting your fear that maybe, without the polish, you won't be wanted at all. That maybe your rawness, your awkwardness, your contradictions, your longing is too much, or worse, not enough. So you stay in the game, even though it drains you. You keep optimizing, adjusting, editing. You become fluent in microdoses of intimacy, enough to feel entertained, never enough to feel held. You get good at the early stages, the banter, the flirting, the light vulnerability that suggests depth without demanding it. But something in you hesitates to go deeper, because depth requires time, and in a culture of instant gratification, time is a luxury most people won't give. You feel the pressure to be immediately interesting, immediately attractive, immediately desirable. But real connection doesn't move at the speed of a swipe. It doesn't emerge from clever bios, or curated photos, or 3-second impression. It comes from something slower, messier, something that doesn't fit neatly into an app interface or a romantic storyline. But that kind of connection is becoming harder to find, not because it's impossible, but because we're too distracted, too guarded, too focused on maximizing options and minimizing emotional risk. We're more afraid of wasting time than we are of wasting potential. So we move quickly, and leave quickly, and repeat. You may have noticed that even when something starts to feel good, when there's a hint of something real, the impulse is to question it, to pull back, to analyze. Because vulnerability, in this world, feels dangerous. Like the more someone sees of you, the more power they have to hurt you. And so we stay guarded, confusing safety with detachment. But detachment doesn't protect you. It isolates you. It convinces you that your needs are inconvenient, that your desire for closeness is unattractive, that the only way to be wanted is to be self-contained. And so, even when you find someone you like, you hesitate. You keep it light. You pretend you don't care. You protect yourself, not realizing that in doing so, you're also keeping yourself alone. This is what the dating world has done. Not just turned you into a product, but convinced you that your humanity is a liability, that your emotional hunger is something to hide, that love is a market where value is determined by how little you need, how well you perform, and how quickly you can be replaced. But connection doesn't come from proving your worth. It comes from revealing your truth. And that truth, as terrifying as it may be, is what makes you human, what makes you lovable, what makes you worth choosing, not just matching with. You don't have to keep performing. You don't have to keep optimizing yourself into something more palatable, more clickable, more digestible, because the kind of love you're really aching for won't come from being perfect. It will come from being real, even if that means being messy, even if that means being misunderstood, even if that means being rejected by people who only know how to love a filtered version of you. The pain you feel in the modern dating world isn't just about rejection, it's about erasure. It's the ache of not being seen for who you are beneath the branding. It's the fear that you've lost touch with that person altogether, but you haven't. That self, the one that existed before the performance, is still in you, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be chosen, not for what it can offer, but for what it is. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from always trying to be likable, not kind, not genuine, likable, as in socially appealing, sexually marketable, emotionally convenient. You've probably felt it, that tension in your chest after a date where you weren't fully yourself, but you weren't lying either. That sense of being both seen and unseen, of being desired and still somehow invisible, like someone liked the idea of you, but never asked to meet the rest. And maybe you've internalized that. Maybe you've started believing that if no one is staying, there must be something wrong with you. Maybe you've blamed your own awkwardness, your attachment style, your body, your tone, your need. Maybe you've started editing your personality to avoid future rejection. Or maybe you've simply numbed out, told yourself you don't need anyone, laughed about how dating is just a game, pretended that sleeping with someone who doesn't remember your favorite song is good enough. But underneath the strategies and the scripts and the irony, there's still something soft in you, something aching to be met, not managed, something that wants more than just chemistry or compatibility or a string of witty texts, something that longs to be loved in a way that isn't earned by performance, but offered in presence. That ache, the one that modern dating teaches you to bury, is proof you haven't turned to stone, proof you haven't given up. Because it's not weakness to want love. It's not desperate to want to be seen. What's desperate is the world around you, desperate to keep you distracted, disembodied, and disconnected, desperate to make you doubt your own worth, so you keep playing a game that never ends in real connection. The irony is, almost everyone in the game feels the same way, guarded, tired, trying, wondering if they're the only one who still wants something real. You're not the only one. People are still capable of intimacy. They're just afraid of being judged, afraid of being too much, afraid of being hurt by someone who gets close and then leaves. So we build walls, we make jokes, we keep it casual, and then we wonder why everything feels so hollow. But here's the thing, authenticity is contagious. When you drop the performance, when you speak from the place beneath the cleverness and the posing and the polish, you give others permission to do the same. Not everyone will meet you there. Some will still choose the version of you that's easier to digest. Some won't know what to do with your honesty. Some will leave, and that will hurt. But those who stay, they're the ones you were starving for all along. Not followers, not matches, not people who think you're hot or smart or interesting. People who make you feel like you can stop trying. People in whose presence you forget to edit yourself. People who see you, not because you're performing, but because you stopped. Real connection doesn't require perfection. It requires courage. The courage to be boring sometimes, to be insecure, to say something real and not know how it will land, to admit you care, to risk being the one who feels more, to want something deep in a world that makes you feel stupid for wanting anything at all. You are not a product. You never were. You are not a profile, a bio, a swipeable face on a screen. You are not an aesthetic. You are not an algorithm. You are a person, a whole, contradictory, vulnerable, extraordinary person. And if love is going to mean anything, it has to mean being chosen as that person, not for the version you sell, but for the truth you carry. You may not find it easily. You may get hurt again. You may want to give up and go numb and say it's all pointless. But the world is not too far gone. People still fall in love. People still want to be real with each other. People still ache for what you ache for, even if they're afraid to admit it. So start with you. Choose to stop playing the game. Choose to be seen, even if your voice shakes. Choose to connect, even if your heart's been broken. Because the only way to escape a system that turns you into a product is to remember your humanity and live from it. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be loved for who you are, not what you offer, not what you perform, just you. And that is more than enough.